Hello, this is Earl Aycock, and welcome to Explain My Policy. Our topic today is home insurance. The primary type of policy that is available for people who own their home is the homeowners policy. Now, it does have some requirements. A homeowners policy does require that you live in your home. In other words, a homeowners policy is not available to somebody who has a rental house. They rent to others. Homeowners policy is also going to have some requirements concerning the valuation of the home, what's its value, how old is the home, how many losses has it had in the past, those types of things. But the primary type of policy when you buy a home to cover your home and your stuff is the homeowners policy, and that's the one we're going to talk about today. Now, there are 6 main coverage parts in the homeowners policy, and you have them listed there. On the following slides, we're going to go into a little bit more detail so you know what these 6 coverage parts are. The first coverage under the homeowners policy we call coverage A is covering the dwelling. This is simply the coverage on your house. And you need to know that under the homeowners program, the home is insured to its replacement value. Now that confuses and confounds us sometimes because that may be different from what the home is worth. It may be different from what we paid for the house. But our insurance company's intent is to be able to put your house back should you sustain a loss. So we insure coverage A, the dwelling, on the replacement value of the home. The next coverage is coverage B, and that is other structures. Other structures is covered for 10% of whatever we had our dwelling insured for. So, for example, if we had $200,000 in coverage A dwelling, we would automatically get 10% of that, or $20,000, on our other structures. And I have some pictures of them here: a detached garage, a fence, a swimming pool, a gazebo, a mailbox. And keep in mind, all of these are other structures, and it's entirely possible that an insured could have more than 10%. And there are ways we can increase that. So just ask your agent. If you've got a lot of other structures, you may need more than the 10%. Now, another question we get sometimes is, I don't have any other structures. Well, the homeowners policy is a package policy, and you get 10% on coverage B whether you have them or not. So it doesn't save you anything to take it off, and in fact, it cannot be taken off. So that's coverage B, other structures. The next coverage part is coverage C, personal property. Coverage C, personal property, is usually at 50 to 70% of the coverage A dwelling amount. And this is the coverage that provides insurance for our stuff. I've got a picture here of your clothes, your bicycle, your jewelry, stuff like that. And the neat thing about your personal property is this coverage is worldwide. In other words, it's really not contents insurance. It doesn't have to be in your house to be covered. If, for instance, you take things with you on vacation, like I take my guitar with me whenever I travel, your personal property is covered anywhere. Now, you also need to know there are certain types of personal property in this homeowners policy that have special limits, like jewelry and furs and business property and watercraft. And so you need to know your agent, talk to your agent, and be advised as to what those limits of special property are, because they can be handled or they can be increased by way of endorsement to the policy. And then there are certain types of personal property that this homeowners policy just doesn't cover at all. Your airplane, your car, all of those things are personal property, but they're not covered. Your pets aren't covered. So there's a list in this policy of things that are not covered, and you need to understand that and see if those things are of a concern to you. The fourth coverage part is coverage D, loss of use, and this coverage part is what gives you money to take care of extra expenses or extraordinary expenses you have because you've had a covered loss to your dwelling. Okay, so if you've had a fire and it puts you out of your house, this coverage goes up to 30% of the coverage A dwelling limit and is used to pay for those extraordinary expenses like motel rooms or additional expenses due to eating out all the time. Those types of things can be added up and use coverage D, loss of use, to take care of those. Okay. Coverage E is personal liability. This is probably the most important coverage part in the policy. It comes with a base limit of $100,000, and this limit can and should be increased. We live in a very litigious society, and so there's a chance that you may be sued because of something that happens. You may damage somebody's property, or they may claim you did, or you may hurt somebody, and you may get sued. Well, this is the policy that's going to respond to that, and if you are legally liable for an injury or a damage to which this policy responds, the company will pay up to that limit. Now, a very important part of this coverage is that it also provides a defense. So if we're sued and we have a covered claim, then our company will defend us, and that is in addition to your limit of liability. So that's a pretty cool coverage to have, and it's very important. The final coverage part is coverage F, medical payments. And this is just a no-fault first aid type of coverage to take care of people that don't live at your home but may get hurt while they're there. You may have a guest visiting, they may fall down, and it may not be your fault. They may just trip over their own feet, but we want to provide them some money to take care of the emergency first aid. That comes at a beginning limit of $1,000 per person, and like the liability, that can and should be increased. Some other provisions you'll see in your homeowner's policy that's going to have a deductible. The deductible is an amount that's taken out, or that you must pay actually if you have a covered loss under coverage parts A, B, C, or D. The deductible does not apply to the liability or med pay, but it does apply to those property coverages. The deductible can be increased. In other words, the higher you raise your deductible, the lower your premium is. So you need to be willing to set your deductible at that point where it's uncomfortable for you, but you don't want to set it too high. So you have to draw the line between the savings and the discomfort of having that deductible. There's also some exclusions in this policy. There are certain things this policy just will not respond to, and exclusions serve a purpose. I mean, some things are uninsurable, like war and nuclear and those types of things, and they're going to be excluded. But some things, they just say, well, take care of it, but give us a little extra premium to cover your jewelry or your watercraft. And so there's going to be some exclusions in there for those things, and those exclusions can be dealt with in many ways by endorsements. I love vanilla ice cream. These homeowners policies are designed for the vanilla risk. If you are not vanilla, though, there are ways to handle you, and we call those things endorsements, just an insurance term for how do we change this policy to fit somebody who is not vanilla. And so if you're not vanilla, you really need to speak to your agent. Your agent needs to ask you some questions. This homeowner's policy needs to be looked at with your particular risk in mind. And if you've got an extraordinary amount of, say, for instance, jewelry or furs or guns, or you have a watercraft or something like that, it's easy enough to modify this policy and make it fit your needs. And that's where a good agent comes in handy. I hope you've learned a little bit on this understand your homeowner's policy, explain my policy, your home coverage. But if you've got any further questions, there's my contact information. I'll be glad to help you. There's my phone number, my email address. I ask you to understand your policy. It's your responsibility to read your policy, know it, and have a good agent that can help you understand it better. Have a good day.